Welcome back, everyone. Jake here. Currently, we're on day 74 of Russia's disastrous invasion of Ukraine, and it's estimated that over 24,000 Russian soldiers have been killed so far. This doesn't count wounded in action, missing in action, or POWs. In general, this has just become a very deadly conflict for both sides, but Russia is still losing between 1 and 200 soldiers a day. And potentially, it's about to become even more deadly for Russian forces because the first video has emerged of this new Switchblade Kamikaze drone smashing into Russian infantry forces in Ukraine. So this video was posted on the Facebook group for Ukraine's 53rd Mechanized Brigade. I'll go ahead and link this down below if you want to follow them and you can read what they're posting. And let's watch the video together, and then we'll talk about what exactly are we looking at here. So at first glance, this might not look like a lot happens. You have to remember with the Switchblade drone, it has about the same destructive force as a hand grenade. So let's refresh ourselves by watching this clip so you can hear the sound and feel the concussive force when this thing actually slams into whatever it's targeting.
Amid the quiet beauty of the Utah desert, a deadly new kind of weapon on display. NBC.
So if you can hear that or feel that just a little bit, that is what slammed into these Russian soldiers. So there's a drone that is recording and surveilling these Russian forces, and you can see there are 4 Russian infantry in some kind of dugout. They've developed this fortified position, and it's believed that this is a machine gun nest. So there's a road coming into this town where these Russian forces are gathering, and potentially there's a machine gun right here. So at the beginning of the clip, they're letting you know there are 4 soldiers currently in this trench. However, when the drone finally hits right here, you only see 2 back here. You don't see potentially the other 2 in the machine gun nest. Now, when the Kamikaze drone comes in, it tries to direct the blast in a certain direction. So obviously they tried to hit it right in front of the machine gun nest. This thing was probably flying in at 150 kilometers per hour, so it couldn't be seen or heard prior to impact. So yes, if there were 2 Russian infantry in this machine gun nest, maybe it took out the gun, maybe it at least injured, if not killed, those 2 Russian infantry in that nest. The other 2 soldiers are freaked out. They immediately disperse, run back into the building. The United States first announced it was sending Switchblades to Ukraine in March. They are also sending 700 AeroVironment Switchblade unmanned systems to Ukraine, of which 100 have been confirmed delivered. Each system may count up to 10 explosive-laden drones and 1 control unit, meaning these 100 units is actually 1,000 of these Kamikaze drones, and 7,000 have been promised to Ukraine. Ukraine is receiving both models, the shorter range Switchblade 300, this is what we saw in the video, and it's suitable for soft targets close to the front line, while the much heavier Switchblade 600 can conduct deep strikes out to 25 miles away and knock out armored vehicles. Pictures of these Kamikaze drones are already showing up on Russian social media. These pictures were taken by Russian forces near Kharkiv, and you can see that most of the drone is still intact. There are 2 sets of wings, the one in the back. The one in the front is gone because this drone exploded. You can see that the front of the drone is burnt, and basically the front wing can even act as shrapnel from the blast. If it hits someone or something, it can do some damage. So what do you do if you're the Russian forces? This has to be a mind meld knowing that anytime you step outside, potentially one of these kamikaze drones going 150 kilometers per hour could slam into you. And the maker of the Switchblade drone says they're ready to produce thousands for Ukraine if Washington acts. Wahid Nawabi, CEO of AeroVironment, which makes the Switchblade loitering munition drone, said in an interview that the company has dedicated production facilities ready to make thousands of these weapons for Ukraine if the United States government wants them, if they can find the money for them. And sure enough, last week, President Biden has asked Congress for an additional $33 billion in aid for Ukraine as the war drags on. So just think about the staggering amount of money. The Biden administration is asking Congress for $33 billion in funding, and there's broad bipartisan support. This will pass. They're just hammering out the fine details. In order to respond to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, more than double the $14 billion that Congress has already authorized in support of the war. So combined, in 3 months, the United States is ready to spend $47 billion. So what is the entire annual budget of the million-man Russian military, supposedly second best in the world? And Russia last year spent $65 billion on their military for absolutely everything they have and everything they do. So the United States, 3 months, $47 billion. Russia just can't compete with this. They neglected their economy. All the sanctions are going to make it impossible for them to keep up. So the longer this war drags on, the worse it's going to get for Russia. And ultimately, I think this is NATO and the West's plan. When Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin went to Ukraine to meet with Zelensky, he shocked people when he said that it's the United States' express goal. This was not a gaffe. He said this deliberately. But he wants to see Russia weakened to the point where they can never invade another country successfully again. So they're trying to protect Romania, Poland, the Baltics. And if we can absolutely devastate and cripple Russia's military today, and then the sanctions will take care of their economy, they're never going to be able to rebuild and attempt another invasion like this one. An additional piece of news, the rival to the Switchblade Kamikaze drone is this secret Air Force tech called the Phoenix Ghost, and the first Phoenix Ghost training has completed as Ukraine shifts from air defense to these unmanned aerial systems. But about 20 Ukrainian soldiers have wrapped up their training on the Air Force's newest UAS weapon, the Phoenix Ghost, which we think is another kamikaze-style drone. So I think they were delivered 121. So these 20 Ukrainian soldiers that have now spent a week being trained, they're going to get these guys to the front line and put these drones to use, hopefully. We don't know anything about the Phoenix Ghost, but I'm sure as soon as they start slamming into Russian defense positions and Russian tanks, that eventually pictures and videos will be leaked on Facebook, leaked on social media. Potentially that could be coming in the next week. So when we look at the war map, what has Russia really accomplished in the last month and a half since abandoning their northern campaign to focus on the Donbass? And it's not a lot. Russia really wanted to have some kind of tangible victory that they could deliver to the Russian people on their Victory Day, May 9th celebration. But as far as progress in the Donbass, progress trying to get to the Moldovan border, Russia's not getting it done. So today is May 8th, and this is actually Victory in Europe Day. I don't know if people maybe in Western Europe celebrate this day at all, but in the United States, we have Memorial Day, we have Veterans Day, and we don't really recognize VE Day because World War II didn't end for America until September 2nd, 1945, when Japan finally surrendered. But Victory in Europe Day, or Victory Day as they call it, is one of the most important holidays in Russia. This is happening tomorrow. So have you figured out the discrepancy here? Russia celebrates their victory in World War II on May 9th, but Germany surrendered on May 8th. All the Allies acknowledged and recognized that the war in Europe was over on May 8th. So let's dig a little deeper into this and see if we can figure out this mystery why Moscow is having their celebration on May 9th when Germany actually surrendered on May 8th. Here's an article from The Atlantic, Why Russia Celebrates VE Day on a Different Day Than Everyone Else. 70 years ago, international politics and a technical glitch delayed the end of World War II for an hour. So let's see here. 70 years ago, Germany's surrender to the Allies took effect, making the formal end of World War II in Europe. Or did it? Americans, Brits, and French mark the date of the Allied victory on May 8th. Russians celebrate on May 9th. It's not just because of a time zone difference, but allegedly there were some sentences missing from a document. So rumors of a German surrender had begun to circulate in late April 1945. Adolf Hitler killed himself in his bunker on April 30th, 1945. The temporary German chancellor that succeeded Hitler was Karl Donetsk, and he gave the ceasefire, and he gave permission to General Alfred Jodl, the chief of staff to the German army, to go to the Allied headquarters in Reims, France, and unconditionally surrender. So this is just outside Paris, near the Belgian border. This city in this location is somewhat significant because this is where Germany surrendered to the Allies after World War I, and where France surrendered to the Nazis in 1941. So they had the chief of staff, let's see here, this guy, Alfred Jodl, come out to Allied Headquarters Command to give their unconditional surrender, and it was supposed to take effect May 8th, 1945 at 11 p.m. European time. However, the Russians were not happy with this ceremony, this person that the German chancellor sent. The signature of Jodl, a relatively low-ranking general, was not enough, especially not for the Soviet Union, which had suffered by far the most casualties among the Allies fighting the Germans. The reason had to do with the last time Germany surrendered, 55 miles to the west in 1918. The surrender had been signed by a civilian politician who opposed the war, and not by Germany's top military commander. Hitler and his allies later claimed that this meant that German forces hadn't really lost World War I, but had been stabbed in the back by their political opponents. So Nazi Germany used this as a propaganda ploy, that the only reason why they lost World War I is not because their military lost, but because their political leaders sold them out. They betrayed the German military. So the Soviets demanded that the highest-ranking commander in the German military, Field Marshal William Keitel, personally go to Berlin in order to have a big ceremony and surrender to the Soviets' top general. So this was Grigory Zhukov. This is the Soviet commander for the Soviet forces. And here's the propaganda video from 1945. It's about 2 minutes. Let's watch the first minute of it.
Berlin's Army School is the end of the road for the Nazi reign of terror. Here, Air Marshal Tedder, General Eisenhower's deputy, and Russia's Marshal Zhukov meet with Field Marshal Keitel, a haughty Prussian aristocrat and representative of the General Staff. This time it's the German army that surrenders. No civilians are involved as in World War I. This time the Wehrmacht takes its full share of blame for years of ruin and brutality. Keitel signs, marking the end of all German military action. Tedder and Zhukov add their signatures to the document that surrenders Germany to Allied control and completes Nazi humiliation. Following the ratification, the Allied officers tour the gutted Nazi capital. Berlin's once proud architecture is only a memory. Years of heavy pounding by the RAF and American air forces have made Germany's first city almost unlivable.
Germany's first city is unlivable. So what the heck happened here? On May 8th, Keitel arrived in this Berlin suburb to ratify the surrender and formalize the end of the war. But there was a problem. Apparently, the Russian text was delivered incomplete in Berlin and lacked a few sentences. So the surrender was supposed to take effect at 11 p.m., but the final version for the Soviets wasn't signed by Keitel until 75 minutes after this 11:01 p.m. deadline. So what the heck happened here? And I think what happened is that Germany wanted to surrender. Hitler had been dead for a week, and they coordinated it with the Allies in France. So on May 7th, they had a ceremony, and it was supposed to take effect May 8th. This wasn't good enough for the Soviets. They wanted the top German general in Berlin to do it with the top Soviet commander. So they did it again. You know, they had all the cameras, they had the journalists, they had everybody fly to Berlin just to appease the Soviets. And the Soviets, this report from Deutsche Welle is from 1970. So what I think happened is that they had a draft of a document they wanted this Prussian aristocrat to sign, and then a couple hours later, they wanted to change it. They wanted to make it more humiliating, more degrading for this German officer. So they couldn't get their act together before midnight, and then they didn't have the document signed by Keitel until like 1 o'clock in the morning. So all the Allies, the French, the Brits, the Americans, they were all satisfied. They knew this war was over. But the Soviets were obsessed with propaganda and wording and humiliating the Germans that it bled over into the hours of May 9th. So here is Stalin, his victory broadcast that he finally gave to the Soviet people on May 9th. Let's just watch the first little bit of this clip.
Товарищи, соотечественники и соотечественницы, наступил великий день победы над Германией. Фашистская Германия, поставленная на колени Красной Армии и войсками наших союзников, признала себя побежденной и объявила безоговорочную капитуляцию. 7 мая был подписан в городе Реймсе предварительный протокол капитуляции. 8 мая представитель немецкого главнокомандования в присутствии представителей Верховного командования союзных войск и Верховного главнокомандования советских войск подписали в Берлине окончательный акт капитуляции, исполнение которого началось с 24 часов 8 мая. Зная волчью палатку немецких заповедей, читающих договора и соглашения пустой бумажкой, мы не имеем основания верить им на слово. Однако, сегодня с утра немецкие войска во исполнение акта капитуляции стали в массовом порядке складывать оружие и сдаваться в плен нашим войскам.
So even Stalin is dancing around what happened over these 3 days. He's like, yeah, there was a preliminary surrender on May 7th, there was an official surrender on May 8th, but we didn't trust those Germans until we actually saw them physically surrendering. So May 9th is the day that we will celebrate in perpetuity. This is why we can't have nice things, the Soviet Union. Why do you have to be so difficult? So to wrap this video up, I want to draw parallels between Stalin and Putin and just how obsessed they are with propaganda and imaging and how much charisma these two men lack. I haven't watched many speeches from Joseph Stalin, but just from that radio broadcast, I mean, his country just lost 20 million people. And they've been fighting this war for 4 years. and he just has no charisma, no style. And even in his victory speech, he can't help himself, and it's just a very bizarre way to address your population. And Putin, I see similarities. You know, on the speech he gave right before invading Ukraine, he's slumped in his chair in his bunker, rambling for an hour about Nazis and nonsense and just the most bizarre things. But really, I would imagine, as far as Soviet history, Russian history, they've turned their backs on Stalin, but I don't think Putin has. I think Putin is looking for inspiration from the past, for Moscow's glory when their borders extended to their maximum reach. And I see parallels today. I'm sure Putin is thinking about his legacy and how he can take the victories that Stalin had. Stalin died an old man comfortably in his bed after murdering millions of his own people. Putin is saying, how did that guy do it? What can I take from him that served him well during his time and apply it to the Russian Federation's day in order to rebuild my empire? Okay, that's all for this update video. If you found it informative, give me a thumbs up. Really helps out with the algorithm. If you know something I don't, let me know in a comment down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, take care, be safe.